everyone, I am Sarah Garrity, and I'm going to show you a technique that I sort of discovered on using my Gelli Plate the other day, and I am now in love with this technique and have spent, hard to confess, but hours making papers with this particular technique because it's just so much fun. Here's some samples. I just wanted to show you what the finished products look like. It gives you sort of like a layers of paint, but it also sort of reminds me of layers of tissue paper that you may glue down to paper. And these are just a few examples, just so you know what the finished product's going to look like. And you can do it in any color palette. I really love blues and greens, as you can tell. But here's another example. This one's more of a greens and browns. I'm not sure how my colors are showing up. I don't think they're going to show up as vibrant because this is like a real fluorescent pink and yellow, but they're probably not going to show up quite as fluorescent as they are in real life. But you can see the different layers of paint and the different shapes that are on the paper. And this was all done on my Gelli Plate. And those were all on half sheets of cardstock, and this is one I did on a full sheet of cardstock. The half sheets are probably easier to work with at the beginning, so just take whatever weight cardstock you have and just cut it in half. And I have a bunch of these sitting over here ready to roll. I chose two colors that complement each other. I'm going to work with blue and green again, like the examples that you saw. I really like the Martha Stewart paint. I do have a bunch of different brands of craft paint around, and I do have some of the golden paints. The golden paints are fabulous to work with, but they're a little too rich for my pocket. The Martha Stewart paints, in terms of the craft paints that you can buy, they're a little more expensive than some of the other brands, like Craft Smart, which is something that Walmart sells. This one's very inexpensive. What I've noticed is that the Martha Stewart is a little bit higher quality in terms of how long the open time that you have to work with it, and the opacity of it. If you're looking for just something quick and a little more see-through and transparent, the cheaper paints are probably better. And you'll notice the difference when you put them on your Gelli Plate, because the Martha Stewart will look really thick and creamy, and the others will look kind of thin and sometimes even run a little bit on the plate because they're so thin. But I just choose the Martha Stewart because I've come to really like the consistency and the end product of these. You can choose any two colors you like. Just keep in mind that you don't want to make mud, so choose your colors so that they don't create that brown that we all have encountered on occasion when we're doing something on the Gelli Plate. I'm going to go ahead and fill my plate with some paint. When I roll this out, I'm not going to roll it out so that it is completely blended. I want to keep it rolled so that there's some variations of color. So I want to keep areas of blue and areas of green on the paint, on the plate. So just don't overdo the roll. I don't roll my brayer off with this because I'll reload the plate with the same paint again. So I'm just going to set that aside and use that paint the next go round. I'm going to move my paints out of the way. So it's easier to start doing this with a little bit of a smaller size paper. Just you'll see why in a second, because you've got to be able to maneuver the paper, but you can do it on larger sizes. Okay, so the plate is wet with paint, and what I'm going to do, instead of laying it straight down to pull a print, I'm going to just curl the paper in different ways and drop sections of the paper down on the plate. And I'm turning the paper and just sort of laying it down. Sometimes I'll lay it down and use my fingers to sort of rub a little bit so it picks up a little bit more solid pieces of the paint. You want to try to keep it curled though and not bent, because you'll end up with this piece of paper that has tons of creases in it, and if that's a look that you want, that would work perfectly. And in my case, I want these to be smooth pages when I'm done with it, so I try not to crease it too badly as I work. And I'm just working my way around the plate. And I keep flipping my paper over just to kind of see where my white spots are and where I need to get some paint on there. Alright, I'm going to stop with this one because you're going to roll the plate a couple of times to add layers to your cards. So I'm going to set this one aside to let it have a little bit of time to dry. And I'm just going to grab another piece of paper and start setting it down and picking up pieces of paint. So you just continue to work your way around, filling in little spots here and there. Okay, I'm going to pull, let me see, I'm going to pull kind of across the middle because I want to show you something that happens. Okay, and that one didn't pick up like I wanted it to, but that's okay. On this particular pull going down this way, you'll just see that in these spots here, I had already pulled one time before. So you start to get these really cool layers as you pull sections off, because you'll get some sections that are real light from previous spots that you've pulled paint off of, and then spots that are heavy with paint because you hadn't hit them yet. So it starts to get sort of some really cool layers going in there. So I'll just continue to pull. I'm going to set this one to the side and start a new one. Now you'll notice when I loaded my plate with paint, all I did was the rollout of the two colors. I have not tried this technique with adding any kind of textures to it, like a stencil or bubble wrap or anything like that. I would imagine it would give you a pretty cool result, though. I just have not played with that yet. Okay, so my plate is getting pretty empty of paint. That's my last pull that I'm going to be able to do. I'm going to set that aside. I'm not going to clean the plate or pull the paint off the plate because my whole object here is to create these layers of paint, either by touching and overlapping sections on the card or on the Gelli plate itself. So I'm just going to take my wet brayer and roll off what paint was left on there. If there's not enough there, I'm just going to go ahead and roll some more paint on there. A little bit of blue and some of the green, and roll that out again. And you'll start to see these layers building up as you pull things off. It just is so cool. The finished product with all the different layers on there reminds me of one of my favorite children's author, Eric Carle, and the way that he paints his tissue papers and uses the tissue papers to collage back in the animals and the different things in his books. His work is just so awesome. So this technique kind of reminds me of those painted tissue papers that he uses to do his illustrations. I'm going to go ahead and grab a card that I had already started on, a piece of cardstock that I call it a card. I don't mean like greeting card, I mean like cardstock card. I'm going to go ahead and grab this one that I had already started working on and go ahead and pull some more off with this new layer of paint that I have on my Gelli. And just trying to fill these in. And you just keep flipping your card over, looking to see where you've got a white area that needs to be filled, and laying the card down. I will tell you that I'm working a little bit faster than I probably would if I were just working on these without being on camera. What I normally do is, after that first layer is down, I'll dry the cards real quick with my heat gun. You don't have to. Drying them in between, what that does, it helps to create a layered look more than a blended look. Now if you like the blended look, then don't dry them. But see, this first layer is still pretty damp, so when I put this second layer piece on, it just sort of blended with the wet paint, so it doesn't look as dimensional. It's not a huge difference if you dry them, but I do notice that it gives it a little bit more of a layer rather than a blend. So I'm just going to continue to pull. I hope this part of the video is not too boring, because I know sometimes watching other people work can be a little on the dry side, but I'm just going to continue to work my way around, and I'll try to show you the cards as I go. This one's still a little damp still, but that's okay. I'm just going to pull a few sections here and there. And we're looking for those layers of paint. I don't tend to fill the card up completely with color. I do like to leave a few white spots here and there so that you can sort of, it creates more of an illusion that something has been added onto the paper rather than painted onto the paper, if that makes sense. So I do leave some white spaces in my finished pieces. Let's see. Alright, getting there. Okay. I still have wet paint on the brayer, so I'm going to go ahead and load this up. And I think what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to go ahead and pull this paint, and this is really kind of a cool look. I've gotten the excess paint off my brayer, and I'm just going to pull the paint off the plate to show you kind of a cool pull from all the different layers of paints that were on there and the places that had been pulled off already. That's kind of a really neat look to it. Alright. Now what I'm going to show you is a way to add sort of just a different layer to these. So far, mostly what you've gotten on here is places that are very blended between the blue and the green. So maybe you want to have a little more blue just emphasized on the layers. So you can load your plate with just blue and then pull, make sure that doesn't have any green left on it, just pull pieces of blue into the collage surface, or the paint collage surface. I'm not sure what to call this, but anyhow, it's if you want to just sort of highlight some blue areas, just roll your plate with blue, and then that way when you pull, and I'm not sure how well that's going to show up, when you pull, you just get sort of a very bright blue layered over the green. And again, probably would show up better if I had taken the time to dry it with the heat gun. The blue would stand out quite a bit more. So I'm just going to go through and find some of these really big white spots and fill it in with some blue. And I know my arm probably keeps getting in the way of the camera. I apologize for that. Alright, so that card has ended up being probably a little more blue than green, but that's okay. I'm good with that. Alright, that's really kind of cool how I ended up with this triangle on that one without even meaning to do that. I think I might just leave that alone. I'm going to pull a little bit of blue in these white areas. And then I think that one's done. I like that triangle. That was completely accidental. Alright, so I've got a big blue, big white section there, so I'm going to just run my hand down that section. A little bit more blue there, and I declare that one finished. And this one's got quite a bit of green. Just a little bit of blue in there. Let me see. Sometimes I have a hard time knowing when to call it done and quitting. I just am having so much fun pulling paint off of the plate that I like don't know when to stop for some reason. Okay, so I'm going to roll my brayer off just to get the paint off on the plate. And now I'm going to show you how I cleaned my plate off, which gave me a whole other look, which I thought was really, really cool looking. And hopefully this will work, because, you know, sometimes stuff works when no one's watching, and then when you've got someone watching, it doesn't work like it was supposed to. But I've done this a couple times, and it ends up giving you this really cool look where it kind of ends up looking like the Venetian plaster walls that they do in Italy. So let me just grab a piece of paper. So this is basically me cleaning off my plate because I hate to waste paint. So I just roll paint on. A lot of times I'll just roll on a plain old white paint and make a pull, and it gives you sort of these faded kinds of pulls with just a bare little minimum of color in them, but I think those look really cool. This one doesn't show up as well. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see this at all, but you can kind of see where it looks like that plaster finish, where it's been, the plaster and these different colors have been scraped off. Let me see if this one's going to look a little bit better. But it gets most of the paint off my Gelli Plate, and I end up not wasting any. I do keep a notebook to the side. Maybe you can see a little bit better on that one. I'm just not sure about the lighting in here, whether you're going to be able to really see the colors or not. But that's a really cool look. It's sort of a plaster look. Another happy accident from working in here the other day. I still have some green on my brayer, so I'm just going to go ahead and roll it off. And maybe I'll just pull. These are the same cards I was using before. And I'll just pull again, just to pull off the rest of that paint. And that actually looks kind of cool. It ended up giving me a nice color on there. Okay, so here are the finished pieces of paper that you end up with, and I might go back in and maybe put a little bit more color on that one. These I'm completely happy with. I really love that one a lot. And this one with the cool triangle that I wasn't even trying to do. It's pretty awesome, I think. So anyhow, this is just a really fun technique. Sometimes it's like the Gelli Plate's so much fun, but you roll everything out and then you get that one pull and then maybe a second pull and then you're done. I find this process a lot of fun because you get to sit and work with it for a little while, and it's just a fun technique, and you end up with a really cool looking finished piece of painted paper. So I hope you enjoyed it. Give it a try, and I hope you like your results. Thank you for watching.